Hi, I'm Erica Papernik-Shimizu, Associate Curator in the Department of Media and Performance at MoMA. Thank you all so much for having me. I'm honored to have the opportunity to engage in dialogue with the organizers of Viva Video and to explore how these overlapping exhibitions together shine a light on Kubota's art historical significance and enduring legacy. I'd like to thank Mihoko Nishikawa and the Museum of Contemporary Art Tokyo for hosting this event, as well as Norman Ballard, director of the Shigeko Kubota Video Art Foundation, for his continued support and engagement over the last 2 years. I look forward to joining live for the discussion following the presentations. Shigeko Kubota Liquid Reality is the first monographic presentation of the artist's work at a U.S. museum in 25 years. By focusing on a selection of the artist's pivotal early video sculptures and installing them in the museum's fourth-floor collection galleries, I had the opportunity not only to put Kubota back on the map as a pioneering video artist, but to place her in a broader American sculptural context. This focused exhibition places Kubota's notion of liquid reality as an entry point to her hybrid artworks. Kubota said that video allowed, quote, the freedom to dissolve, reconstruct, mutate all forms, shape, color, location, speed, scale, liquid reality, end quote. This idea cuts to the core of Kubota's groundbreaking video sculptures. The MoMA exhibition begins in the early 70s, but the notion of liquid reality, as well as each of the works on display, finds roots in her Fluxus period of the mid to late 60s. This early painting from 1965 still hangs in the artist's Mercer Street loft, which now houses the Shigeko Kubota Video Art Foundation. It displays the phrase, moving clouds, flowing water, which conveys the concept of absolute freedom at the heart of Kubota's cross-disciplinary experimentation and connects so clearly to liquid reality. It was in video that Kubota found total freedom from precedent, liberation from the corporate news media, from established art historical values, from formal conventions, an entirely new way of looking at and processing the world. Rapidly developing synthesizers created the new possibility of manipulating the electronic signal to sculpt the video image in real time. In video, Kubota found the freedom to create her own visual language. To further establish what motivated Kubota to present video as sculpture, I incorporated this photograph of her with the portapack into the exhibition's title wall in both galleries. The photo was shot in St. Mark's Square in Venice during the trip on which she shot one of her earliest single-channel videos, Europe on Half-Inch a Day. With this image, I wanted to communicate the way in which early video making was a highly physical process for Kubota. The advent of portable video equipment led many of her peers to engage in an interior studio-based video practice, while others, like Kubota, found new ways of engaging with the world. She traveled widely, documenting cities, nature, emotional landscapes, which she reworked over and over using video processing effects. Early portable video equipment was extremely cumbersome, in contrast with the nearly invisible recording mechanisms of today, making the act of recording a corporeal experience, something she emphasized when she wrote, "I like video because it is heavy." The MoMA exhibition takes place in 2 adjacent spaces, each anchored by a constellation of 3 sculptures. This careful selection traces the development of Kubota's seminal video sculptures from her early practice of concealing the television monitor to her works that rotate and suspend monitors in space, both making use of the architectural environment and responding to shifting environmental conditions. The latter grouping of works is placed against the backdrop of Midtown Manhattan, emphasizing both her engagement with her environment and the important contributions she made as a fixture of the downtown New York scene. The display in the first gallery begins with self-portrait, which contains some of the artist's earliest experimentation with video. A rare example of her using the camera as a mirror, I view this work as the bridge between her performative actions and her groundbreaking video practice. It captures the utopian ethos of the transformative moment when artists were first discovering the boundless potential of video technology. The prominent placement of this work, which was generously donated to the museum's collection by the foundation, also foregrounds the way in which each sculpture on view can be interpreted as an implicit form of portraiture. This gallery, which is built around 3 collection works, establishes the artist's gesture of concealing video monitors within volumetric plywood forms, which were constructed by the enigmatic downtown artist Al Robbins. By obscuring the monitor, and therefore its brand name, Kubota isolated video from the realm of mass communication and consumer culture. In doing so, she made video part of the object and created an entirely new plane for viewing moving images. Each sculpture has at least 1 foot of breathing room between the back of the work and the wall. It was important to me not to hide the back of the sculptures and to allow the works to kind of float a bit, in keeping with a traditional display mode for sculpture. Kubota's earliest video sculptures directly interfaced with works by Marcel Duchamp as a framework for her exploration of the ways in which video could reinvent and expand prescribed notions of art, primarily the idealized concept of singular authorship and the original. For Duchampiana, Nude Descending a Staircase from 1976, Kubota reinterpreted Duchamp's 1912 painting, which is known for its depiction of movement using principles of cubism and chronophotographic motion studies, as well as its destabilization of the convention of the female nude. A thumbnail image of the Duchamp painting is reproduced on the exhibition's wall label to make the connection accessible for visitors. I like to think of Kubota's staircase as a visual form of concrete poetry, as she was very much echoing Duchamp's own visual puns and wordplay. In fact, this sculpture, like her other early Duchampiana works, was originally accompanied by a short poem, which is not included in the MoMA display, but is presented alongside the work in Viva video. Kubota lived among many of her sculptures in her Mercer Street loft, including the original staircase, and as a result, these works show signs of wear that we consider to be an important part of the life of these sculptures, and evidence of her approach to them as both unique sculptural objects and conceptual propositions. To create the work, Kubota shot footage of the filmmaker Sheila McLaughlin walking up and down the rickety staircase at Anthology Film Archives, where Kubota was video curator for nearly a decade between 1974 and 1983. Shooting in both video and film, Kubota experimented with varied frame rates, setting the nude in rapid motion, in her words, letting Duchamp's nude live again. The work's accelerated pace is heightened by its synchronous presentation on 4 monitors. Kubota specifically chose the wood grain in the sculpture for its horizontality, which echoes the horizontal scan lines of video, in contrast with film as a vertical medium. The work was acquired by MoMA in 1981 following Barbara London's 1978 Projects exhibition, and became MoMA's first acquisition of a work combining sculpture and video. This can be viewed as the germinating point for a new chapter in the museum's collecting history that would ultimately see the formation of the Department of Media and Performance and the museum's robust conservation focus on time-based media. With 3 Mountains, which Kubota described as an autobiographical object, we see her moving beyond Duchamp, combining her diaristic video practice with her newfound sculptural vocabulary. After this work, Kubota continued to expound on the relationship between technology and the natural world, which is explored further in the adjacent gallery. Here, Kubota realized a practice she called structural video, combining single-channel videos with imposing forms and direct dialogue with minimalism and land art. Monitors of varying sizes are placed within mirrored chambers, adding a layer of optical fragmentation. By contrast, we have the intimately scaled Berlin Diary, Thanks to My Ancestors from 1981, a quintessential autobiographical object, a remarkable work that was recently acquired with generous support from MoMA's Modern Women's Fund. Here, Kubota inscribed a poetic text on a sheet of quartz, which she affixed to a small television using a piece of twine. Her calligraphy, illuminated by the electric glow of the screen, replaces the images that populate her videos. By exposing the monitor and combining it with handmade elements, even going so far as to sign the screen, Kubota transformed a symbol of mass communication into a tool for personal reflection. It was a great pleasure to collaborate closely with MoMA's media and sculpture conservators on this exhibition. I just wanted to share these great period advertisements for the monitor Kubota used for Berlin Diary. These were obtained by Leah Kramer, MoMA's former Mellon Fellow in Media Conservation. She sourced 2 backups of the monitor, appropriately called the Sony Sunset, so we could study its inner workings as part of our long-term conservation plan for this work. In the museum's adjacent Kravis studio, 3 sculptures made in the first part of the 1980s convey a weightlessness, a total liberation from prescribed notions of both video and sculpture. River, Video Haiku, and Niagara Falls 1 are characterized by suspension and reflection, utilizing architectural space to disrupt the horizontal structure of television viewing. This gesture was groundbreaking, and it was achieved with an economy of means that makes these works equal parts radical and poetic. In considering the presentation of these works, I worked closely with the foundation to extend the height of River and Video Haiku, pictured here, to the 25-foot ceiling height of the space, and referred to primary materials from the foundation's archive. In this notebook, you can see how Kubota was connecting geometry with ideas about linear and nonlinear time. So by extending the height of these works, I wanted to emphasize their verticality and drive home the conceptual significance of suspending the monitors. In Video Haiku, a round monitor slowly swings back and forth, capturing the work's environment through a CCTV camera and reflecting it in a floor-based mirror sculpture. Kubota's use of a live feed rather than recorded content for her haiku is significant. This work uses surveillance technology to create a real-time portrait of each viewer. We encounter it with an awareness of our own bodies in space, and it hinges on the highly variable conditions of its immediate surroundings. With River, Kubota harnessed nature for what is perhaps her most pointed commentary on the mass media. She turned the monitors upside down and made their screens visible only through the unstable surface of water, creating mirror reflections of media reflections. But she also invites us to revel in the sublime beauty of the abstractions created in the water, and, in yet another layer, she interweaves a reference from her personal history, the Shinano River in her hometown, as a metaphor for the way in which electronic signals connect global societies and past and present time. Thinking about the ways in which early video art was a countercultural art form at odds with corporate television broadcast, I love that you can actually see the NBC Comcast Studios tower at Rockefeller Center just beyond Niagara Falls, which skews and inverts 10 television monitors in cascading descent above a reflecting pool and ruminates on the increasingly fluid relationship between nature and technology. With this focused selection, I wanted to foster close reading of these complex works and draw out the relationships between them in order to paint a clear picture of the larger thematic concepts behind the works. By fostering both formal and conceptual links between them, we can begin to understand the greater significance of gestures like Kubota's serial repetition, suspension, reflection, which so many of the works have in common. Each of these sculptures combines the energy of electrons with inert material, the oppositional medium of video art with the sanctified realm of the object, and post-war fabrication techniques with the unpredictability of nature, moving water, and mirror fragments that freely float, for example. MoMA has a commitment to representing key figures whose contributions have been overlooked by the dominant historical narrative. Although Kubota's video sculptures have not been given the attention they deserve until now, they have remained so fresh and influential for multiple generations of artists, from Toni Orsler and Diana Thader to younger artists like Shanae McAleen Holloway, who invoked Kubota in a recent MoMA Modern Monday conversation. The exhibition aligns with several museum priorities, including increased recognition of pioneering women in technology. As well, the museum's CMAP Asia initiative has dovetailed with several key recent acquisitions by such artists as Shuzo Azuchi Gulliver's cinematic illumination acquired in 2019, and an untitled video sculpture by Park Hyun-ki acquired in 2018. The museum is also committed to representing key figures in depth, so I was pleased we were able to add to our collection holdings of Kubota's work with the addition of Berlin Diary and self-portrait. The exhibition is accompanied by a catalog that consists of an introduction, a scholarly essay by Gloria Sutton that does the important work of revisiting the dominant art historical narrative to argue for the significance of Kubota's combinatorial propositions and the ways in which they resist easy categorization, followed by key work entries that function as visual essays. Each of these include a mix of unconventional installation views, a range of primary materials, studies, references, ephemera, as well as ample video stills. We also wanted to show Kubota at work. Here are 2 images showing her engaging with electronic video processing methods. This spread shows her at Anthology Film Archives alongside an image of the stationery indicating her title as video curator there. The Kubota Foundation was so generous in facilitating access to the archive, especially during COVID, and allowed me to tell a rich, multidimensional story through their archive. Finally, I reproduced a selection of watercolor haiku from Kubota's notebooks, as well as the essay she originally published in the Open Circuits catalog in 1974. By reprinting this frequently cited text, I wanted to emphasize Kubota's role in advocating for the new video medium and for fellow women in video, but also to invoke the physicality of early video making that she describes here in connection with her video sculptures specifically. This concludes my presentation, and I look forward to the discussion.